Hey guys, this is question MM085 of the Maths Methods Sharpened Study Guide. On the axes below, sketch the graph of f of x equals negative 1/5 times x plus 2 times x take 3 times x take 4 from x equals negative 2 to 5. So let's just start. So we have to label all intercepts and endpoints. Let's start with the intercepts and then we can deal with the endpoints. Actually, you know what? Let's start with the endpoints, and then that way we can make sure that we don't screw that part up. So I'm actually going to draw my own axis. We've got f of x equals negative 1/5, x plus 2, x take 3, x take 4. And what we want to do is find the endpoints. So we know that our endpoint occurs at x equals negative 2 and x equals 5. So let's start by just subbing those in. So we then have negative 1/5, negative 2 plus 2, negative 2 take 3, negative 2 take 4, which becomes negative 1/5 times 0 times negative 5 times negative 6, which of course, because there's a 0 in there, is all equal to 0, which means that our endpoint occurs at negative 2, 0. And our other endpoint occurs at x equals 5. So f of 5 equals negative 1/5, 5 plus 2 times 5 take 3 times 5 take 4, which is equal to negative 1/5 times 7 times 2 times 1, which is equal to negative 14 on 5. So our other endpoint is 5, negative 14 on 5. So now that we've got our endpoints, we can sketch them on the graph. So let's chuck in a scale here. We've got 5, 5, negative 5, and negative 5. And you'll have a grid when you do this, so you won't have to do this. But our endpoint occurs at negative 2, 0, which is here. And because this is a square bracket at negative 2, this is included, which means we do a closed circle. And at 5, x equals 5, it's a circle bracket, which means it's not included, which means we do an open circle endpoint. So that occurs at 5, negative 14 on 5, and negative 14 on 5 is slightly less than negative 3, so, or slightly more, slightly towards 0. So we go to 5, negative 14 on 5 is, let's call it here, and that's an open circle because this is a circle bracket here. All right, awesome. So now we need to figure out what our intercepts are. So for our y-intercept, we chuck in x equals 0. So f of 0 equals negative 1/5, 0 plus 2, 0 take 3, 0 take 4, which is equal to negative 1/5 times 2 times negative 3 times negative 4. There's 3 negatives in there, which means the overall value of this is going to be negative. So 2 times 3 is 6, times by 4 is 24. So this is going to be negative 24 over 5, which is 1/5 towards 0, like after negative 5. So we've got 0 and negative 24 on 5. And we have our x-intercepts when y equals 0. So we sub that in, we get 0 equals negative 1/5, x plus 2, x take 3, x take 4. And what happens there is we actually just solve this now. So we divide both sides by negative 1/5, which cancels that out. And then, because 0 divided by negative 1/5 is still 0. And then we simply use the null factor law. So the null factor law states that this is equal to 0, this is equal to 0, or this is equal to 0. So 0 equals x plus 2, 0 equals x take 3, and 0 equals x take 4, which means that x equals negative 2, x equals 3, and x equals 4. And these are our 3 x-intercepts. So we already know that there's an x-intercept at negative 2 because that was our endpoint. We know that our y-intercept is at negative 24 on 5, which is about here. Our y-intercept is at negative 24 on 5. Our x-intercept is at 3, and our x-intercept is at 4 as well. So let's call 3 here and 4 here. Cool, so we've got an intercept here, an intercept here, and then an endpoint here. because this is a negative coefficient of x cubed out the front, the cubic looks something like that, and it goes sort of downwards. And now that we've got all of our intercepts and our, intercepts and our endpoints, we can start drawing it. So our first endpoint is here, comes through the y-intercept, and we don't necessarily have to draw the turning point or label the turning point because the question hasn't asked for that. So now we just need to label. This is -2, 0. This is 3, 0, 4, 0, and that is 0, -24 and 5. And we also need to label our endpoints. This endpoint is already labeled because it happened to be a intercept as well, but this one is 5, -14 over 5. Make sure that your domain is correct. So we've done from -2 to 5, and we've labeled all of our intercepts. So that's everything. This is our final answer.